For joining our session. This webinar, we're going to be going over a demo of our machine learning based stock price forecaster with natural language processing. And I'll go over the agenda here. The agenda is we'll first start off with who's on the call, do some introductions. We'll go over what is machine learning based forecasting, some of the training returns, some of the tools that we'll be using, the Colab code. We'll also be going over some crypto and S&P 500 backtesting results, talk about the course, and then questions. And one thing is that I think it's better for us to keep this session interactive. So if there's questions, just chat in the chat box below, and I'll try to answer the questions. So, okay. So first of all, who's on the call? So if you can, in the circle chat, type out what is your occupation, do you know how to program and code, how much investment experience do you have? So I'll give you guys an example. Oops. So for me, so machine learning expert, and I've been programming since I was 6. It's been a while. And then I've traded since finishing college. It's been a while. Okay, so if you guys can do that, it'd be great. Just so that I can know my audience and I could tune this for the folks on this circle call. Okay, so who am I? So my name is Greg Tanaka, and I originally did electrical engineering at Caltech, and then computer science and electrical engineering at UC Berkeley. I did also some graduate work at Stanford. I started doing a lot of work around GPUs, programming, designing GPUs, and a lot of stuff around video. I started a company that did a lot of work around forecasting. So forecasting from staffing to forecasting for trading. So I started a company called Pika Group. My last stop, we raised a bunch of money from Adjacent Hordes, Google Ventures, Miller Ventures. These are some of the top venture capitalists in the world. And and then I've been teaching this course for a few years now. So that's who I am. And you guys can see more of my bio on the LumaWealth website. And what LumaWealth is, it's a very great organization because it's focused on teaching people how to fish versus giving them the fish. And to learn more about LumaWealth, let me show you guys the YouTube page for LumaWealth. Can we drop the link? Let me show you guys the website here. So this is the LumaWealth website. As you can see, there's a ton of video. Basically, there's a video maybe not quite every day, but pretty close. So a lot of good free content. So I'm going to put this on the chat for you guys. And I suggest that you guys subscribe. That way you can keep in touch as to what are some of the latest. And the other thing is we have a really good Discord channel. So let me drop this link also into the chat so you guys have it. And if you guys don't know what Discord is, it's kind of like a like Slack or like a chat group. So let me show you what it looks like. Okay, so here's Discord. So Discord, this is the LumaWealth Discord server. And so you see just a ton of conversation. There's people who talk about, their trading strategies, various investment news, algo trading. People talk about, Web3. So it's a very active community. There's always people on there just about any time of day. So I want to encourage you guys to check this out. There's no cost for joining, but it's a really good way to get some alpha and kind of know what's going on. And let's see. Yeah, and as I mentioned, try to ask questions throughout the presentation. It's more effective that way. Otherwise, I kind of feel like I'm talking to myself. So just put them in the chat group. And yeah, thank you, Tim, Jeremy, Gia, for telling a little bit about your background. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so let's get into the meat of the presentation. So the core of trading, whether you're trading crypto or Forex or you're trading stocks, is forecasting. You got to anticipate what's going to happen. And traditionally, the way people did that is they use what's called traditional indicators. And there's a bunch of them. There's probably, several hundred of them. And a lot of these traditional indicators are now kind of built into whatever trading platform you're using. So like, for instance, a very common one is something called RSI, or Relative Strength Index. And the way it works is when you see the RSI hit a certain level, and that it kind of indicates that the stock's going to go up. It's going to be like a bull run for the stock. And if it goes below a certain level, then it's probably going to flatten out. And that's what you kind of see here for this stock called the TSG group, or the STARS group. And what these indicators do is they help you figure out like when should you buy and when should you sell. Now in this case with RSI, you'll see that it's not really, it's kind of noisy, right? Because you can see it hits this line several times, right? So it's kind of like not so clear that it's going to be on a bull run, because you can see here it kind of dropped, and it, of course here it was actually above the RSI. So it's not the world's greatest indicator. And in fact, I would argue that the effectiveness of these kind of traditional indicators has been dropping, just because they're too common and they're not really that as powerful as they used to be, because they're not able to pick up more complex patterns that happen. But nevertheless, a lot of people use these to forecast the future price of securities. Now, the main problem with traditional indicators is that a lot of the trading, like for instance on the stock market, 80% of this trading on the stock market is algorithmic. So there's a really great website out there called Seeking Alpha. Let me show you guys that website, Seeking Alpha. And it has a bunch of great news about different stocks, investment strategies. But one of the, and I'll drop this into the chat here. One of the articles it talked about was this idea of how algo trading dominates 8% of the stock market. So when you're trading, you're thinking that it's some human on the other side, but it's not. It's actually some sort of bot. And a lot of these bots are using these simple traditional indicators that I talked about earlier, and they act much faster than any human. And that's one of the reasons why day trading, just using purely technical indicators, is actually really tough, because the bots can move faster and react faster than a human. So that's one big problem with traditional indicators, is that they're all been taken over by bots. All the bots kind of use them, and so it's really difficult to make a profit, because all that profit has been whittled away by these trading bots. The second thing is that these indicators are really simple, right? So like some of them are like the rolling average, or some of them are like RSI. They're just really simple. They don't have the ability to capture complex forecasting patterns, and they're really common as well. So it's difficult for individuals to get that alpha, or to get that edge, right? Get something that other traders don't know. So as a result, just using traditional indicators to do trading these days is just maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, it was actually okay. But today, it's really a tough way to make money. Okay, so I talked about traditional indicators, and let me talk about machine learning. And the best way to understand this is to contrast the two. So traditional indicators are really easy to calculate and understand. So you could just use a calculator, or even do it by hand. So it's not really hard to figure out what these traditional indicators are, and which is why people use them early on, because you didn't need a very powerful computer to compute them. But the big issue is it has limited ability to factor in different information. So a lot of these traditional indicators just use the prior price, what the historical price is. But there's only so much alpha in the prior price. And if you can't factor in other types of information, it's going to be difficult to forecast, because the way you have to think about forecasting is you're basically trying to mine different signals. Like there's a certain amount of alpha in the price, the historical price, there's a certain amount of alpha in um, in the volume, right? There's a certain amount of alpha in maybe what other stocks did, or what a cryptocurrency did, or the quarterly earnings. There's a certain amount of alpha in all these different signals, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to pull. You're like mining for gold, right? You're trying to pull and mine this alpha from these different signals. And traditional indicators have a really difficult time to kind of factor in all these different factors. And it's just mainly using historical price. But the biggest problem with traditional indicators is that they're built into just about every trading program out there, and they're way too popular. So it's hard to, no matter what complex trading view you're using, to um, to get an edge, to do better than other people. Now you contrast that to machine learning. So machine learning versus traditional indicators is much more complex, much harder to implement. You need much more beefy machine to do machine learning, which is one of the reasons why people weren't doing a whole lot of it 50 years ago. But it's increasingly popular today, because compute power these days is dirt cheap. But the big advantage of machine learning versus traditional indicators is that you could factor in lots of different information. So for instance, maybe there's a subreddit, right? Wall Street Bets, or maybe there's a Twitter feed, or maybe there's a Discord channel, or maybe there's newspaper articles, or news feeds, or you know Yahoo chat, or whatever, right? There's a whole bunch of different signals that you could tap into that you can't use with traditional indicators. And with machine learning, you could tap those and you can incorporate it into your model. And it's also much more cutting edge, right? It's a lot of the big institutionals don't use machine learning yet, because it's more black box. It's hard for a lot of these regulated institutions to use black box models. So this kind of puts advantage into the individuals, right? Where individuals, you're not necessarily regulating what you're going to invest in, because you're just investing your own money. But these large institutions have to explain why they're investing into different things, and as a result, a lot of these kind of machine learning models, which are black box, they're not allowed to use or cannot use easily. So that's one of the reasons why machine learning is advantageous for individuals, just because a lot of the big guys haven't been able to do this yet. Not to say that there aren't people doing it, but it's not as popular. So what is machine learning? So the best way to understand machine learning is to contrast it to traditional programming. So it looks like some of you guys have experience programming, and you're probably familiar with this. So with conventional programming, let's say using Python, what you're what you're doing what you're doing is you write a program, let's say in Python, and you feed it some data, and then it spits out a result, right? So the program could be simply like, if a equals 2, print hello world, right? Something really simple like that. And so the data is the variable a coming in. So it could be the number 2, it could be 4, it could be whatever. And the program is if a equals 2, and then it spits out the result. So that's conventional programming. So it's explicitly specifying what the computer is going to do. Now you got to contrast that to machine learning. With machine learning, the program and the result are kind of flipped around. So the input to a machine learning is you still have the data, but instead of telling the program, if a equals 2, print hello world, what you do is you put in hello world and you put in the data 2. And then what machine learning do is it will figure out that if a equals 2, print hello world, right? So it's kind of flipped around. And you might be thinking like, well, why the heck do you want to do it that way? Why would you not just want to explicitly program um, the computer to do this? And the reason why is because for some problems like forecasting or computer vision or um, I've been doing a lot of stuff around something called stable diffusion or AI generated art. It's really hard to explicitly specify what um, what um, uh, what the program should do. It's much easier to give results. So, for instance, like with computer vision, you put in the data might be a picture of a cat, and you say the result is a cat, or the data might be a picture of a dog, and the result is a dog, and the machine learning is able to figure out where are the weights, what's the neural network needed to actually give that kind of result. So, um, so it's neat because you can specify things to the machine learning that are really hard to do with conventional programming. And the big advantage of machine learning is that it could detect much more complicated patterns than you can actually program in with conventional programming or use traditional indicators. And right now, especially with some of these larger models, you're able to do an impressive kind of almost superhuman type of performance, whether it's forecasting or detecting whether a picture is a cat or dog, or whether it's generating a picture like an art piece. So this is why machine learning has become so popular. And while machine learning is relatively uh, is not as common as conventional programming. Like most programs are conventional programming and with just a little bit of machine learning. Increasingly so, more and more programs are going to be done with machine learning. And the big reason why is because it can detect these patterns that you can't program in. And so it's able to do a really good job forecasting that's hard to do with conventional programming. So, so this is kind of the idea behind machine learning. And if this is not a good explanation, then just put something in the chat and I could try to explain it better. So some of the tools we'll be using in this demo is Alpaca. So let me bring up Alpaca for you guys. So this is, if you guys haven't heard of Alpaca, it's really neat. It's let's see, Alpaca market. Okay. I'll put the link in here for you guys. So this is Alpaca. And what's neat about it is they have really great APIs. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of how to use their stuff. And so you could get some trading data. If you put like $1 in, you get some trading data. They don't charge for their APIs. So it's a really solid service. So a lot of people use it to do algorithmic trading. And they have a ton of examples. So, and it's also what we use for the class. Oh, actually, let me put the link into the chat here. Okay, and we're using Python 3. So Python 3 is the latest version of Python. And Pandas is kind of like the spreadsheet for Python. And in this example, we'll be using TA, which is a Python library for technical analysis. And scikit-learn. So scikit-learn is a really basic, what we call shallow learning model or frameworks. Google Colab. So Google Colab is probably one of the best free tools out there because you can even use a GPU for free, which a lot of machine learning programs need. And Google Cloud. So Google Cloud. The reason why we use Google Cloud is because it has a lot of great AI frameworks on there. So for instance, it has Google Natural Language Processing, which in our case, we can use it to figure out sentiment. Okay, so let me show you the setup here. So we're going to be using Alpaca for the API and for the trading. And then we're going to be scraping a website called FinViz. So let me show you that website. So this is FinViz, and it's a really great financial website. It has a ton of information, but what it also has is like for different stocks, it has like stories on them. Like stocks falling or whatever. This is also a really good website. I'll give you guys a link to it as well. Oh, Gia asked a good question. How familiar with Python is recommended to take this class? So I would say that Python is a super easy language, and a lot of the class we give you template code. A lot of what machine learning about is getting the data right. So it's more about the data than the code. There's actually probably less programming with machine learning than there is with regular conventional programming. So Gia, it's a good question. And then Tim asked the question, is machine learning more dynamic? It is a lot more dynamic. In fact, that's why people use it, because with traditional conventional programming that I talked about earlier, the big problem with it is that it's very brittle. So, like for instance, I gave this example of, well, here is if a is equal to 2, print hello world. But what if it's 20 or 50? What should it do, right? It's if it's not explicitly programmed, the program doesn't know what to do. With machine learning, it will still give you an answer, right? It may not necessarily be a right answer, but it's more flexible. And that's actually really important because, like for instance, when you're trying to forecast, you may not have seen that pattern before. And so it's much more dynamic. And that's the whole reason why people use machine learning for forecasting. It's because it's much more powerful than trying to explicitly program something in Python. But great question, Tim. Okay, so we're going to use Alpaca to do the trading and to get the data feed. We're going to use FinViz, and there's a package out there called Beautiful Soup, which is a way to just scrape it. There's lots of ways to scrape the website, but this is just one way. We're going to be setting up the training data, and then we're going to be also generating the test data to test the model out. And the way to think about machine learning is you got to think of yourself as being like a teacher. You're teaching a class to students, and so you kind of give the lecture to the students. That's kind of like the training data. And then you got to quiz them to see whether they actually learned it or not. So you give them a quiz or a final, right, to see whether they learned it. And if they didn't learn it, then you got to do some remedial training. You train the model, we generate the prediction, then analyze the results. So let me show you Colab. Okay, so this is Colab, and it's really neat because it's maybe it's a little bit small. Let me try and make this bigger. I don't know if you guys can see it. Okay, that's probably better. Each of these things are what they call cells. And you can just press play here to play the cells. I already ran it, so I'm not going to run it again. But the neat thing about it is that it's a great way to learn a language. So if you don't know Python very well, it's a great way to learn because you could run some cell and you see what happens. So it allows us kind of interact. In fact, they call this interactive Python notebooks. Okay, so this is the example. Let me what this one's doing is what I just talked about on the slide here. So let me kind of walk through quickly. So there's just some setup here. What we're doing here is we're hooking up so that we can hook up to Google Cloud. And then we have information here to set up for the Google NLP. And then what we're doing here is we're analyzing sentiment. So we're analyzing the sentiment. And then down here, what we're doing here is we're scraping the FinViz website I just showed you earlier, and grabbing all the news for a certain ticker symbol. In this case, I'm just using A, which I think is Agilent. And so it's going through, it's scraping the website, and then calculating a sentiment score, what the sentiment is. So you can see it as example output, right? It did a bunch of scraping, and it scraped all of the headlines for the Agilent stock, and then gave a sentiment score. And some of the sentiment is neutral, some of the sentiment is negative, and some of the sentiment is positive. And so we put this numerical score. So we could take a data source, like in this case, like from FinViz, but you could take it from Reddit, you could take it from just about anywhere, Twitter, and you could use this, you could feed this in as a signal to whether to trade something or whether to affect the forecast. And so we're using Google Natural Language Processing, so it's literally reading it. And the neat thing about this is that it can react way faster than any human. And that's the advantage, is that as a human, you can only read so fast and react so fast, react within a certain amount of time. But with machine learning, one big advantage is that it can process a ton of data quickly, much faster than a human. analyze the sentiment and say, okay, this is where the market's headed, right? And then you can trade on it. It gives you alpha. So what we're doing here is just putting the data together in the data frame. This is just a little function that we have to retrieve data from Alpaca. And then what we're doing here is we're building up the training set. So this is an example of how you use Panda data frames. And we're just basically populating it with our sentiment score that we got down here. And then also with a bunch of different traditional indicators. And this is an example of a partial printout of what it looks like, right? So we have the close price plus the technical indicator plus the sentiment. And then we do the same thing for the test data. And then and a lot of this code I provide you guys, so it's all a template, but you guys have to put it together, and you guys got to focus on your own financial asset that you guys are trying to trade. And then down here we do the training. So most of the code I showed you so far is just the setup in terms of getting the training data. The actual training itself, there's not a whole lot to it actually. So what we're doing here is we are training the model, and we're doing what's called a rolling training, right? So basically, we have if this is all the training data, we're kind of rolling through it to train the model. So we're kind of stepping along in 15-minute increments. And the reason why we use something like scikit-learn is because to train the data, it's actually really simple. We just call this one function called fit. And then let me show you the rest of this. And then to do the predictions, we look at the predicted outputs. So these are all the features we fed into the model, right? And then this is what the model predicted. And so down here, you can see the results. So let me close this off so it's a little bit bigger. So the orange is the predicted stock price, and the blue is the actual. Now you see some of these straight lines. These straight lines means the market was closed because it's the weekend or at night. And so if you look at where the orange line is versus the blue line, it's actually pretty accurate. It's not bad, right? So, and you can also look at, well, what was the most important feature into the model. And so what was really important here is the RSI. It's kind of what I talked about earlier. So this turned out to be a really impactful feature. And if you want to see what the error rate is, you can see, so it's like a 0.25%, so pretty accurate. And now if we do the same thing, so the same kind of training setup, except we don't have the sentiment score, we could see how effective it was to actually include the news data from Finviz. And the way you could test that is you could use something called the p-value. And if the p-value is really small, like in this case it's really small, then that means that the NLP was was very significant to the forecasting of the model. So what we do is we do a lot of our experimentation in Colab because it's really easy to kind of iterate and experiment with things. And then once you get the model trained and it's looking like it's pretty accurate, what you do then is you go into the cloud to run things. So anyways, I just showed you the setup, the training of the model, generating the predictions, and then analysis of the results. And feel free to ask questions. I could go into a lot more depth if you guys are interested in, but just for the sake of time, I'm kind of going over it quickly. Okay, so once you have the forecast, right? So we build the model, the forecast model in Google Colab. We train the model, make sure that's really accurate. Okay, so once you have an accurate prediction, what do? Well, you got to trade on it, right? And so the way you trade on it is, here's an example of this very simple stock trading trigger code. So if the prediction is higher than the current close price, right, then you want to buy a certain amount, right? And there's this threshold value where maybe you want it to be above, 1% or 2% above the prediction price, because sorry, the production price to be above the current close price. And the reason why is because there's trading costs, there's commission, maybe there's the bid-ask spread. So you have to be above a certain threshold. Otherwise, if the prediction is below that close price plus a certain threshold, then maybe you want to sell a certain amount. Otherwise, if it's between the two thresholds, then you don't do anything. You just kind of hold. So this is an example of a simple trading code. Okay, so let me show you how you get this implemented. So I'll give you a quick demo of Google Cloud. So this is Google Cloud. I like Google because it has so many built-in APIs that we can use to do machine learning, and so it makes it fairly easy to do things without a lot of work. Let me show you our workbook here. So as that opens, let me oh, here it is. Okay, it opened already. Okay, so so once you have your machine learning model fully baked, you can then use something called LumaBot. So LumaBot is something that it's an open source platform, so you guys can use it. You can just import it into your program. And what you can do with this is you can use LumaBot to do back testing, as well as paper trading, as well as real trading. So the reason why you don't want to run it in Colab is because Colab times out after an hour. If you don't move your mouse around, it times out. And you also don't want to run this on your local computer because maybe your internet goes out, your power goes out, and you don't want some bot running when that happens. So you can easily put this into LumaBot. So it has most of the code written for you. So there's relatively little code that you have to actually write yourself. And so you put it into the frameworks here. And once you do that, what it will do is it'll spit out benchmarks. Like, so in this case, we put in the model and we did it for, in this case, Bitcoin. So we're using, let me show you guys this. So in this case, we built a forecaster for Bitcoin, and like for this period of time, and then we're trying to see if we could forecast accurately, and then trade on it. So here's what happened. So the benchmark, which is just Bitcoin, is this yellow line. And then using forecasting, what you can see is that you can actually beat the buy and hold strategy of Bitcoin, right? And so here are the trades that happen. So you basically use that forecast model, and then let me trust HTML. Okay, so here you can see it will buy and sell according to the forecast. So it's buying and selling based on the prediction. So if the prediction says, oh, the stock's gonna go higher, it will buy, and if it says it's gonna lower, it will sell. Okay, we also did it for so this one here is the same model that I showed you earlier that we trained in the Colab. So we basically instantiated here in using LumaBot, and here it just performed fabulously well. So so you can look at the benchmark, which is just basically the S&P 500. Oh, I should be clear. So we're using something here called let me show you guys this slide. So we're using TQQQ. So it's ProShares. Let me show you guys what that is. Okay. So this is ProShares, and basically it's like a leveraged S&P 500. So it's more volatile than the S&P 500. So that's what we're using. That's what we're using to do it in this demo here. Let me get my window. Okay, so yeah, so you can see the returns are way better, and this is only like, you know, a few months of data, but it's way better than just using the base 2QQQ that I showed you earlier, right? And so in this case, it has like 158% compound annual growth rate. And there's something called the Sharpe ratio. And this is something to really look at because the Sharpe ratio determines like the risk reward payoff. So it's a return divided by the risk. So if there's a lot of risk, the Sharpe ratio is lower. So usually anything above a 1 Sharpe ratio is actually really good. And in this case, it's 2.5. So this is phenomenal. Oh, W, yeah, no problem. We actually are recording this and it's streaming to our YouTube page, so you'll see it. You'll get it there. But yeah, thank you for asking that question, W. So yeah, so it's performed very well, and then you can see here. So Lumabot does all this visualization for you, right? So it does the back testing, and then it does all the visualization. So in the class, we'll teach you guys how to hook up your model to Lumabot so that it can trade for you. And so here you can see all the times it bought and sold, right? So try doing this manually. It's actually really hard. It's a lot of work. So and so by doing this, you can get phenomenal returns, as you can see here. Okay, so yeah, so in this case, we know we're just showing off capabilities, not necessarily trading returns or guaranteed trading returns. And in the course, we're going to go to a lot more details of what is machine learning, how to use deep learning, how do you build a stock forecasting model. In this demo, I kind of showed you how to use common indicators as a feature. We used a random forest model, and we just forecasted 50 minutes in the future. So, kind of gives you a taste of what we're going to be doing. Okay. Oops. Okay, so I just showed you guys the Lumabot demo. So yeah, so the basic procedure is you build your model in Colab, you train it, you get it working well, then you deploy it in Lumabot, like on Google Cloud using, let's say, one of the Vertex notebooks I just showed you. And then um, you could do back testing first to make sure that works, and then you do paper trading. If it still looks good with paper trading, then you try with small amounts of money with real trading. And so the goal of the class is you guys walk out with a final project where you actually have a trading bot, a bot that actually does some trading. Okay, so let me go over the course. So let me first copy this link for you guys. Okay, so for the course, we have several different types of plan. One of them is a self-directed plan, and this is really affordable. Basically, get access to all of our instructional videos and sample code that I showed you here. And you could kind of do it if you're traveling, if you're busy, when you're on the train. So it really lets you work at your own pace. And then we have the live class, which is actually the most popular version of this. And it allows us to interact. So we basically use Zoom. Everyone can see each other. And so it's like a real class. And a lot of people team up on projects together. And I think one of the biggest advantages of the live class is just the camaraderie that people build with each other. And so we've had a lot of students who kind of decide to kind of work on projects together and um, and continue beyond just the class itself. In the class itself, there's homework, and the homework basically is building your project, right? Building a real live trading bot that uses machine learning for forecasting. And so this tends to be our most popular class, but we also have a more detailed class where sometimes people they need essentially some more hands-on one-on-one type of help, and so we also have that as well. Oh, and then Gia asked, what are the hours for live classes? So typically it starts at around 5 p.m. and then actually, I think we might have it posted. Do we have it posted here? Oh yeah. Here, well, no, we don't. Yeah, we have it starting. So it's Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time or 8 p.m. Eastern time. So good questions, Gia. Oh, the cost. Okay, so let me show you, Jeremy, the cost. Um, so this is the cost. So the self-directed plan is, the lowest price. It has all these things included here. And then for the live class, this is the price. And I think we actually have a special right now. So it's I think yeah. So there's a coupon code, so you can get 20% off. So you can take this price and you can discount 20%. And so you get everything here, plus you get the live classes. It's roughly 2 hours a week of live classes, but often, there's a lot of questions and interactions, so sometimes it goes a little bit longer. You don't have to stay for the whole thing, of course, but we also include the Q&A, and also like if you want to take the class again, you can. And some people have done that, and we help you with your personal project to actually get you up and running. Um, and then, if you need help with the resume or interview prep, we can also help you with that. And then there's some people who are doing something pretty complex and custom. And then, so we have this one where there's actually some, individual project help as well. And so there's a lot of people who've completed this course. You can kind of see what we're talking about. So the course really is focused on it's more of a practical course. So we don't get into a lot of the theoretical stuff around machine learning. We get really focused on the practical. How do we actually use machine learning for algo trading? So we're not into like, what is stochastic gradient descent or something very esoteric to machine learning. We're very focused on what is machine learning, how do you use it, not so much the theory behind it. We do go into a little bit of theory, but not too much. And it's also focused on using pre-built tools, so you don't have to do a lot of coding yourself. You can get up and running really, really quickly. So you get a good feel about the fundamentals. You understand how to use this kind of data to make good trading decisions, and more importantly, use things like natural language processing to pull in alpha from other non-traditional data sources. So you could be your favorite Discord channel, or it could be a Reddit subreddit, and you learn how to analyze data for algorithmic trading. And what happened here is that everyone will walk out with a working algo bot, trading bot, and that's the goal for the class. So every week we have a homework assignment where you're building a piece of your project. So by the time you finish, you have a working bot, and that you could run back testing on, and then you can also run paper trading on later as well using LumaBot. So that's what the course is about. And this is a curriculum. So we have 8 weeks. The first week is a lot of the setup type stuff. Week 2, we focus in on the basics. So you kind of understand what's going on with machine learning. And the real power of all of this stuff is deep learning. So using neural networks. And then you learn about how to optimize models. And then part 2 is where we start getting to the project, right? So you start building your time series forecasting model, and you learn out how to measure the errors and how to improve it. And then the last part is really start incorporating some of the NLP stuff. And this is really important because a lot of the existing algobots out there don't use NLP. They don't use this really, really important data source, which tends to have a lot of alpha in it. They don't use that, and so it's handicapped. So this natural language processing is really important because it allows you to pull in this kind of alpha that you couldn't get normally. And then here you will learn how to put your model into production with LumaBot. So it's 8 weeks. So good question, Jeremy. It's 8 weeks, and there's one coming up in January. So these sell out really quickly. So I think especially with this discount. So so take advantage of it with this coupon code, and that's basically what the course is about. And you can check out our YouTube channel for a whole bunch of testimonials. And if you want to talk to people live about like their thoughts about the course, I highly encourage you guys to go and check out our Discord channel here. And there's a lot of people who've taken our class. There's a lot of people who are quote alumni who you could get their perspective on. But even if you don't take the course, it's a great group of people to talk to. And Gia asked, am I teaching the course? Yes, I am teaching the course. So this is me, right? So I am teaching the course. Jeremy asked, do we have to go through each class to walk away with their own training bot? No, you don't. We provide a lot of the code for you. So, but we try to have you guys do the homework so you guys know how to put the stuff together and how to use it. Because the whole philosophy behind Luma Wealth is that you guys know how to fish. So you'll get a bot. So what we do at the beginning of the class is everyone picks their favorite thing that they want to trade. Some people want to trade Bitcoin. Some people want to trade Forex. Some people want to trade, um, a certain stock. And so you pick that, and then we start building a bot. Where we start building a model to forecast whatever asset you're trying to trade, and then we put that into production using LumaBot. And so the goal of the class is by the time you finish, you have a working bot for whatever asset you're trying to trade. Okay, good questions. Yeah, just keep them coming. Okay, so we talked about course start dates. Okay, so I kind of went through all the material. I know some of it I didn't go into very much detail, but I could go into a lot more detail for any of the sections. So I want to just give people here a chance to ask me questions. So just feel free to drop in questions here. I didn't spend that much time on Colab. So as people kind of formulate their questions, I'll show you a little bit more about Colab so you guys can understand what it's about. So let me connect here. Oh, for Gia asked for non-live class self-directed. Are you available to answer questions too? And I'll say the answer is yes. There's we also have a Discord channel where a lot of people put in the questions. So we usually set up a section for everyone to ask questions. So a lot of questions are actually answered on Discord because a lot of times people have the same question. So good question, Gia. Okay, so I know some of you guys may not be familiar with Python, but it's like probably the easiest language to learn. Very, very forgiving. So you can do something simple like this: 2 plus 2. 2 plus 2 is 4, right? Or you can do something like this: a, equals 2, b equals 2, or let's say 2 is equal to 5, and then a plus b, right? So it's like super easy. So Python is one of the most user-friendly, most forgiving languages out there. Unlike C++ or C, we have pointers and memory allocation. It's really, really difficult. Python makes it super easy. Yeah, Jimmy, good point. There's a lot of information on our Discord. Our Discord is pretty crazy. I have trouble. I mean, you can see it. I have trouble keeping up on it. There's just so much. There's a lot of discussions. So it's very, very active. And so no matter what you guys do, whether you guys take the class or not, definitely join a Discord because there's so much good, like really good free ideas in these channels, and a really good community of people. So you're kind of with a lot of like-minded people. So check out the Discord channel. I mean, I have to go through here and try to like click and keep up all the time because it's so hard to uh, read all the stuff because it's kind of like there's like a ton of people very, very active in this community here. So highly encourage everyone to at least sign up for this because it's just a lot of good information. So a lot of people help each other, and I like the community on Lumen Wealth. I'm just trying to clear this because I have trouble keeping up on all the chatter that happens. Yeah, so there's a lot of alumni from previous classes. Okay, we have about another 4 minutes. Any other questions? Okay, I'll show you guys the repo for Lumabot. I'll put the source code. So if you guys want to play with it yourself, you can. Oh, okay. So Gia asked, how is this class different from algo training one, or if it's the same? So the the algo training class is just using traditional. It's not using machine learning. So it's kind of like using Lumabot to do trading, but there's no forecasting module. So basically, you're just implementing, maybe using traditional indicators or whatever strategy you have in mind, but it's not using advanced machine learning to make a decision of whether to buy or sell. So this course is very, very much focused on machine learning and building these models to detect complex pattern. And some people will just use the model to manually trade. They'll use the model to figure out when they should buy and sell, and then they'll do the trade manually. But often, a lot of people will actually hook up the models to Lumabot so that Lumabot could automatically buy and sell. So the algo class is more focused on just Lumabot um, and trading algorithmically inside of, let's say, Alpaca, but not really around how to decide how to trade, right? So you have to have some sort of trading strategy. A lot of people will have like, well, if the rolling mean hits this, and if this crosses that line, and whatever, trade. Um, the machine learning class is more focused on not using these kind of simplistic signals to do trading, but to use machine learning models. So very good question, Gia. Thank you. And this is so if you guys want, this is the Lumabot GitHub. So it's really well documented. It has lots of people using it. So like 1,200 commits, right? So quite a few. And you guys are welcome to use as well. There's examples, and it's free. So definitely check it out. So a lot of great free resources. The YouTube channel, the GitHub here, yeah. So check out some of these resources. Okay, so we have about just 1 minute left. But just wanted to thank, unless anyone else has any other questions, just want to thank everyone for joining the webinar today. Hope you found it useful. I know some of you guys weren't able to make the beginning, so you can watch it live on YouTube later. I think we'll send you the link. And yeah, the goal of Luma Wealth is to make people self-sufficient in how to trade on your own. And with machine learning, you could get some unique advantages that you can't get using traditional indicators, and could help you make a better model. But yeah, it was great meeting you, Jeremy, and all the other rest of you people. Thank you so much for your time today, and yeah, hope to see you guys in one of the classes.